And it came back and it laid down another thin layer. But we know now that in less than 5 hours, you can lay down strata, you can lay down laminations, which they've never believed before. This is the Tepete sandstones in the Grand Canyon. Look at this, look at the strata. Does it look very familiar? They have now rewritten the textbooks about the Grand Canyon. I have a book out there, and I should say the book sale will be Saturday night, probably around 5:45 or so. And they have a book out there. It's called Grand Canyon, A Different View. And they're selling it in the government little, sale place when you go up there in the Grand Canyon. And the evolutionists are just, But there it is. And the government said, freedom of speech. These guys have it right, I think. And the geologists are now stating that, well, maybe the Grand Canyon wasn't made the way we thought it was. Maybe a water-charged slurry someplace to the northeast broke and came through and created the Grand Canyon. And this Tepete sandstone, excuse me, it is not just isolated right there. They don't tell you that all of this layering is almost throughout all of North America. Now, how do you lay down something like this throughout all of North America? And of course, parts of it erode away and stuff like that, but we can see it. You can do this by satellite and penetrate by radar, and you can look down into the layers, and you can see this whole layer going across North America. What would do that? Nothing short of a cataclysmic flood. That explains it. It doesn't explain it any other way. The steam explosion pits. You saw those big chunks of ice flying off? They would land, crash, and then you'd have 300 to 600 feet of ash, dirt, debris, all dumped on top of it. What's going to happen? All that pressure and all that heat gets that water just boiling beyond, way beyond 212. Remember the temperature was 1800 degrees Fahrenheit when it exploded out of Mount St. Helens. Well, you've got all this pressure, and eventually, within a day or so, you started hearing these screaming little demons out there as the water had moved itself up and formed and blew out as steam, and you had all these steam explosions. This is a little bit overdone, isn't it? Let's go to this one. Steam explosion pits. Now, this is one of them. It's actually, it's about 1,000 feet wide and about 1,000 feet wide with 2,300 feet long. So 1,000 by 2,300. And from the bottom to the top is a little over 100 feet. Now, if you look at this, look at the gullies and the rills. I mean, doesn't it look like erosion? If you came across this with yesterday's geology book, you'd say that this took millions of years with water cascading down somehow and must have gone down the drain and disappeared. But guess what? This steam explosion pit was made in 5 days. And I've got something that's very important. Now, you're going to have this over anybody that comes tomorrow and didn't see this. And I'll remind you. What made the steam explosion pit? When I first saw this, and I was, turning the pages, and you're reading this thing, and you go into this, and you go, oh, yeah, well, hey, the steam just, just this little thing, and just carved all that stuff out of it. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. This floor right here was up to here. And as the steam came out, the floor was consumed and dropped. And it was the whole floor, as it dropped down, that carved out all the gullies and rills. It wasn't water. And that just shocks the evolutionary geologists because they thought only water could do that. And do it like this, it's rewritten the geology textbooks. You're looking here at Lewitt Canyon. Here is 100 feet of canyon wall. And the evolutionist says that canyons are carved out by, river of this canyon. The canyon was carved out first, and was carved out over the summer and early into autumn, and the little water found its way down the canyon after the canyon was carved out. If you come over to Step Canyon, you've got 3 layers. You've got this one down here, which is a tough bed, an ancient andesite up here, a mud breccia. So 1, 2, 3. All of this area, all the way up to here, is rock, solid rock, that was below the level of the surface before the eruption. As a matter of fact, Step Canyon, this is solid rock, and this is carved out by the May 18 explosion and then filled back in by other explosions. This canyon was actually at one time, they've got pictures of this because it got filled in. At one time during the first explosion, this was 700 feet deep. A 700-foot deep canyon carved out of solid rock made by a small volcano. This again goes completely against evolutionary thought. That you can carve, that a catastrophic event can actually create canyons, can carve out, lay down strata as small as 1 millimeter, perfectly arranged in size and density. On March 19, 1982, this next very important explosion did something very helpful. When the mountain exploded, it blew out north again. It had all the snow melt. It had a whole collection of material and rocks, and underneath a bunch of ash. And when it exploded, it blew all of the debris out to the north, and it curved itself, and it dug out this. Now you're heading west here, so you're east, you're heading west. It dug out all these canyons, and it did so in about 4 hours. Okay, all the canyons, 100-foot deep canyons. And you remember the third map that I showed you, that Coldwater Lake now had an outlet, and Castle Lake? That was what gave them the outlet. It suddenly carved all this out, and now you have an outlet. It created what is called the Little Grand Canyon. Here is a picture of it. This one right over here is a Little Grand Canyon. It is 1/40th the scale of the Grand Canyon. This is Engineers Canyon here. You've got 5 canyons all coming together, all that were made in about 4 hours. Here you can see the various layers and the strata. It's a little over 100 feet here. Here, this is the Little Grand Canyon. Here you see a little bit of water coming down. Engineers Canyon, 100 foot right here. Here's just a little bit of water. Did this water make this canyon? No. No. And you don't have to believe it, because you look at the amount of water going through here, and what the evolutionists did was say, that much water going across this much land would take X amount of millions of years to carve out this canyon. Does that make sense? I mean, you know, as creationists, we said, no, you're not taking into account that there was a worldwide flood. And why does an evolutionist not want to believe in a worldwide flood? Because God warned a whole society and world before the flood that He was God and He was going to destroy the world. So if you're an evolutionist, you're not believing in God. And so therefore the flood is a myth. But the flood explains this very nicely. Now you can see that something this size can be carved out and done in just a few hours. It's just totally amazing. Here you're looking at part of the North Fork of the Toutle River. And this is a little stream jetting off of this. This is 140 feet high. See these gentlemen up here? It gives you kind of an idea of what this is. Now, what is interesting about this is that in order for rock to form, and all this rock, this sedimentary rock that we have, the limestone rock and the mudstone and so forth, all of this rock, the evolutionist looks at it and says it takes millions of years for this rock to slowly harden, or this material, I should say, to slowly harden into rock. Well, this is 5 years later, and these guys are standing on this thing with no fear that it's all going to crumble down. This was just ash and a little bit of mud, and it has hardened itself such that at the time I'm speaking now, you have to have pitons to climb up the thing. It has made itself into rock, and not in millions and millions of years. Under the right circumstances, with the right amount of water, the right mix, and the right weather, etc., rock can form a lot faster than millions and millions of years. And these are the kind of things that they're researching and looking at, that they keep popping up with new, strange, but not so strange observations. This is the Grand Canyon. You're on a Landsat satellite looking down at the Colorado River. This darker material color here is 7,000 foot elevation, and of course it goes off down into a more desert area to the side. Now, the evolutionist says that this Colorado River is on the Kaibab Plateau. The Kaibab Plateau, everything was all flat. Here goes the river. Now, because of plate tectonics, the whole plateau starts to rise. Well, it rises as the river keeps cutting it, okay? So 70 million years is what they calculate it would take for the Colorado River to carve out the Grand Canyon. 70 million years. And they before this, mocked the creationists because they said no one in their right mind can believe that that Grand Canyon did not take time to create. But now we have Mount St. Helens, and we have ours, that we can create canyons that are 700 feet deep. Now the Grand Canyon itself, what, 18 miles wide, 250 miles long, and 1 mile deep. And now what they say is that the Grand Canyon had a very large lake sitting up just to the north and to the east, and a debris bridge broke and carved out that entire canyon, and did it probably in just a few days. And I'll show you something here. Here is Palouse Falls, here in eastern Washington. 180 foot drop from the top to the bottom. Palouse Falls was created by something else more gargantuan.